Hi, and welcome to C.O.R.E programs. I'm so excited to get into the garage of our mind. And I know it sounds kind of silly, but at the same time, as I explain it, you'll understand what I'm talking about. I want to get into talking about how the brain works, how we store memories. And the reason this is important is so much of our battle in life is between our ears. Sometimes people will say they think the devil's attacking them, they think that they're cursed, they think all kinds of things. But the thing they're battling the most is the battle of the mind. And if we can understand those things, then we can handle those things. The things we don't understand are the things that drive us up the wall. And so we need to be able to uh, take that apart and be able to look at ourselves and say, oh, well, that's what's happening to me. And so it becomes more relaxed to handle it. But if you don't know, you'll just start ramping up. And when you ramp up, then you can't think anyway. So it doesn't help. So it's good to get education on how God made us. I'll start out by saying we have a faith brain. Science has proven that. The Bible talks about faith is sure. Faith is nigh thee, even in our mouth, and faith comes up out of the things we believe in our heart. And sometimes heart means soul, sometimes heart means spirit, and sometimes in the original language, it just means your heart. And so much goes on in between our ears, which is our soul, our mind, our will, and our emotions. And that is those areas that we've got to learn to navigate and separate out. It's something that if we understand how the soul works and we understand how we as a person or our spirit works and how they're supposed to work together, and then even our body has to come along with all that, it gives you empower. It'll empower you to be able to rearrange your thoughts. And if we feel out of control at any point, if we feel like, I just don't know what's happened, that gives that crazy sensation. And then if you go with that, that will ramp up. And as it ramps up, you start to think more and more, I must be crazy. This is what's happening. And things get really out of control. So I think this will be beneficial for all people. I know it was very beneficial for me when I learned, oh, that's just how my brain works. I'm not crazy. I just got to figure this out. And so I will start out by saying the term "the garage of your mind" is a term that I just came up with, and there'll be some pictures as we go along so you can see the illustration of it. Is that part of our mind that does the storage? It's right in the hippocampus. It's right in the center of the brain, and it stores everything. Your subconscious stores everything 24 hours a day. So if you were sleeping last night and you have everything unresolved, you could have slept 12 hours and woke up this morning feeling tired. Sometimes that's because your subconscious is working on everything all night. It solves things. It's a faith brain. It's trying to look at where we're going to take this thing. And if there's blockages, it'll run the same math problem, 2 plus 2 is, and then it'll say, what, over and over. It'll look at it like, I can't solve this problem. So then there's no closure, but it doesn't just stop. It keeps doing that. The job of the subconscious is also to protect us. It's there to run the organs. It's there to do so many jobs. And so it relies on the file base that we have in the brain. That's all of our memories. That's all of our experiences. And oddly enough, that's why C.O.R.E stands for Center of Our Relationship Experiences, because what we relate to physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, we log all that. And then that becomes the information of who we are. You can't just skip out on your information. You are your information. You can't pretend you have information you don't have. Sometimes people try to do that. They're like, I'm good. I'll just pretend to have information I don't have. And that doesn't work out in the end. It's always good to be humble and learn. In fact, the Bible says that it refers to becoming like a child. And the word child there, when you look it up in the Greek, it's the word picture that goes with it is to be teachable. So humbling and teachable really go together. And so whenever you're trying to get out of a situation or heal from something or bring something to closure, We have to get knowledge. We have to get understanding. And Proverbs talks about getting knowledge and understanding a lot and how important it really is. So some people get really well educated, but they don't know how to understand necessarily everything that they learn. It becomes a memory thing in the files. And those things are harder to recall when you need them. So some people have gone through a Bible school. They've gone through just all kinds of courses and learning about a certain subject, just trying to graduate it. Just let's do this real fast. We'll just graduate it. But understanding and application go together to be able to come to that spot where you're like, I not only know it, I can stand under it, I can understand it, and I can start to apply it. So we can be really knowledgeable, but have a lack of ability to apply things, and we'll talk about that in the future. But so as we go and we record everything, we record it through our five senses. So these are ports of learning. These are places in the mind, whether your five senses are like touch, it's sight, it's taste, it's all the five senses. That's how you record everything, and you're recording everything. Science says starting in the third trimester, they can see that the recordings are already there. So if you were rejected in the womb, if you were told you weren't wanted even before you were born, those recordings are there. You don't have the ability to understand them, but the recordings are there. And so this is the base then that we start living by. So what the brain is doing when you're being formed in your mother's womb, it's starting the foundational, building a foundation so that you can record everything and process everything. It's very much like a computer. And so as the information comes in, it sorts it out and leaves it there for later application. You might get a knowing, but not have understanding. And maybe at 10 years old, suddenly you understand something that you knew. That's just kind of how the brain works. Well, that's great if that's the way that we're doing it. If we're just recording magnificent things, things that are wonderful, things that are so awesome, we're able to put those memories together. And then we have a really healthy brain, we have a really healthy heart, and everything's great, except for all have sinned and fell short of the glory of God. So we've participated in sin. And so sin, starts to cause destruction. Also, people have sinned against us, and we most of the time didn't know what to do with it. So we received that on us and in us too. And so we have all these blockers of us just gradually moving ahead. And that's where forgiveness comes in. I love the word forgive. It means a great sending away. A great sending away of the power of sin, a great sending away of the energy of sin, if you want to say it that way. And then what you're left with is a memory base. So some of us have said, well, I gave my life to God. I'm letting him take control. Why do these thoughts plague me? Well, the forgiveness part, if you took that before the Lord, you forgave those who've sinned against you, and you've been forgiven. The forgiveness part is there, but the memory base remains. You have to learn how to unpack that and put it away. It's like the filing system is almost like a big, either a file case that all the files are in, or a suitcase full of clothes that you had just piled in there every which way. And it's difficult then at that point to say what stays, what's got to go, what just goes right in the trash, what goes to Goodwill. I mean, all of those things, where our brain sorts all the time. In fact, between 10 and 3 in the morning, our brain sorts a lot. There's these little sweeper guys, just to make the terms real easy to understand. These little guys with sweepers come out and sweep up all the unnecessary thoughts at night. And this is why our REM sleep is so important, because there's a cleanup going on in the brain. Same thing is true of our liver. There's a cleanup going on of our liver. So if we're distraught, we can't sleep, we're overloaded with things that don't have closure, we're tormented by different things or whatever. Well, now the sleeper guys aren't going to work the way that they should. And then there starts to be a pileup. So another way that I've learned to explain this is almost like cleaning your garage in the spring. So you go out there, and it would be like if all boxes were just piled everywhere in your garage. and all the way to the ceiling. All your memories, all the things that you didn't sort out and put away properly. It's just a mess. Nothing's labeled, nothing's in the right spot. You don't know what to do with it. It's very overwhelming. So, what happens is when we go into the garage of our mind and we open that up because we said, I'm finally going to deal with this stuff. We're going to get this cleaned up and put in order. I'm going to get help. I'm going to get counseling. I'm going to go to God. Whatever it is you say, it's like you open the garage door and you look at all that, and it's absolutely overwhelming. Now, if you've been sorting the whole time on most things, then you won't have as much to clean up. But I know I lived a life where there was no sorting. So when I opened the garage, it was packed tight and nothing made any sense to me. And so that's where I reached out to some people, because just like we've looking at this stuff and figuring out what can I do with that. It's like, could you help me clean my garage is really what I was saying. Now, no one can come in and clean your garage. You have to work through that, but they can come alongside of you and be able to teach and get some knowledge of how you're going to sort this thing. And then it takes you and God to really get serious about doing it. So what happens is you open the garage door, it's packed so full. And what I did is I just shut it again. Every time I turned around, I was like, that's way overstimulating. That's taking up too much space, time, and energy in my brain. I'm just going to close it, which is a form of denial and disassociation. And when you close it, you can't use the garage for what it was meant for. Remember I said we have a faith brain? The way the brain is made is there's a connection there that says, I choose everything with my will, and my choices are to move forward. That's how it's made. It's put together in how it takes in the memories, and everything's supposed to be processed and move together in faith. And it gets jammed up in the memory system, jammed up in when you try to get free, when we're stuck. It's not that we're necessarily going backwards, but the past of us is controlling the moment of us. And then we're not able to use our faith to move forward and just live peacefully. And so when we open the garage door, then the other thing that happens is when you decide, I'm going to get help, I'm going to go to God, I'm going to have a life change, I'm going to do that. You open it up and it's absolutely overwhelming. And it can give you the feeling like, yep, I'm going to fail this mission. Yep, I don't think I can deal with all this. Yeah, I don't want to cry again. I don't want to get mad again. I don't want to have feelings again, because I'll have to look at everything that's in the boxes or that's laying around on the floor. I don't want to do that. But you can't just you light a match to it or throw it out on your lawn or whatever. These are options that you couldn't clean the garage like. The only option you have is clean it out one box at a time, or close the door and deny the whole thing. And when you deny the whole thing, we've talked about in the first sessions the difference between depression and oppression. So you can go and take a look at that podcast. There's a part 2 kind of thing. And you can go back and take a look at that, because depression means we're going to press all this in and we're not going to deal with it. If you do that with the garage of your mind, you're just piling boxes everywhere. And oppression is the fear of things happening again. And like I said, it really means fear draws the spirit of heaviness to you. So we've gone over that in different sessions, but I wanted to pop that in there and just kind of remind you or give you a clue where to go to find out what happens when we dissociate or we are in depression. God wants our brain to work toward things, so then you have to have a hope. When you open that garage door and all your past memories are so intense and you feel loyal to them and you feel like you can't get rid of them or unpack them or burn them or throw them in the garbage or whatever, because they're part of you. And so to just take out part of you and throw it out would feel so weird. So what we're doing when we unpack it is we're giving it a different perspective. We're putting it in the place that it needs to go. When we refer to it, we see it differently. And then there's a resolve on owning behaviors and all kinds of things like that we'll get into in the next sessions. And so there's a way to sort the garage. And another way we can refer to this is the hoarding of the mind. So a hoarding thought is a thought where you're like, oh, I'll take that in. That'll go in the garage. I can't deal with it, but I'm supposed to hold on to it. I don't know what to think about it. It's too painful to look at or whatever, but we're going to keep that in case we need it. And so what happens is then it's one hoarding thought after the next. So that's kind of the concept of the boxes in the garage. It's one hoarding thought after the next, and it's very overwhelming. And if you've ever watched like the shows where they're helping people who suffer hoarding, I mean, I have family members who suffer hoarding, and you surround yourself with all kinds of things for fear the bad thing that happened to you will happen again, or that you will be alone, or the tragedies you've gone through. This is your way of comforting yourself. And so when we do that with the brain, it's real difficult to have the space we need to use our brain for what it really needs to be used for. So if you have a garage and it's packed full, what's supposed to happen in the garage? You're supposed to park your car in there. And if you can't even get your car in the garage, then this is going to be a problem. This is going to be, something that's not operating the way that it should. Sometimes people store food in a freezer in the garage. There's all the kinds of things the garage was really meant for, but it wasn't meant to hoard everything and leave it there for years. Because then if you hoard your garage, guess what? It goes deeper into other parts of your brain. It starts flowing over. Next thing you know, there's no more room in the garage. And so the things we're not dealing with, I better bring them in the kitchen, and we'll store this in the living room, and then we'll get it in the bedroom. And just like the people who hoard in houses, it takes over the space of your brain. So coming to Christ and, coming to Jesus and asking him to forgive our sins does take the power of these things, the tormenting things, away. Choosing to forgive other people does the same thing. But when you've got that much stuff in your garage, most of the time you're not even aware of what needs to be forgiven or what needs to you ask forgiveness for, because it's like I can't deal with the now, let alone go back and clean this garage out. It's so overwhelming. So the same thing, if you watch the shows on hoarding, when people go to deal with hoarding, someone wants to try to help. I have a family member that's the way it was. You go to try to help, and they're literally asking for help. But once you start digging into the things that are attached to the garage of their mind, there's tears, there's anger, there's just all kinds of feelings because everything was left so long to deal with. Now, what are we going to do? Now it feels like that is them. That is this, all this information is who I am. And now you're taking away parts of me. So it's not a pretty thing to have to face that. It's never fun to clean the physical garage that we own. It's never like, is so exciting. We just want to get out there, let alone when something's so packed full that it's hard. So in the next session, we are going to talk a little bit about taking a box out one at a time and opening it up. The same way we'd close the garage door if it's overwhelming. Sometimes we take that first box out. It comes up in a church service. It comes up in counseling. It comes up when you're driving to work. All of a sudden you have a memory and you don't know how to unpack it. Many times we'll look in the box and then we'll close the box again. And people will tell me, this is something that's tormented me all my life. And it's so much internal more than it is external, more than it is spiritually something coming after you. It's so rewiring the brain. We've said before here on core programs, we mentioned that, it is what fires together does wire together. And whatever started firing together, it's real interesting to me that it will wire together in certain memories and clusters in your brain, just like hoarding. So if you were rejected when you were 4 years old, seemingly, and it was just something nobody worked you through, you didn't have safety, you didn't have permission, and you didn't have the information to move on. You definitely need those three things: safety, permission, and information to move on. Then what happens is that gets stored and it's noted there as like, here's the area we need to prove that this is true or false. So then we start to see life through rejection. And many times that's the assignment of the demonic realm to you. It's like, let's reject that person again. And all the memories start drawing toward, yep, I'm rejected. I'm rejected. And so what fires together, wires together in the brain. And if you could see the brain just talking about, like in a SPECT scan, you look at the brain, it will light up these big cluster areas on the scan where you've been rejected. Many, many memories are attached to those areas. So we look at that, and that's where I say it takes up too much space, time, and energy in your brain. And now it's time to let go of things, bring closure to things, sort things out, unpack things, and figure out where they go. I literally, in 1981, I started the work when I came to a relationship with God. I started the work to undo all my file cabinets in my brain. And if you want to say the garage of my brain, I started that work. It was very, very overwhelming. And I was only 17 years old when I gave my life to Christ. So you can imagine the life that I lived and all the memories that made no sense, and all the memories from pain of someone hurting me and pain from me just going out and hurt myself. And when I began to sort that, it was like it came out in chunks, one box at a time. So I want to say this before we close, and then we'll get into the rest in part 2 and 3, and who knows, maybe there'll be another section after that. But it's the things that we don't close out that we relive. And so if you feel like you got a memory that you just keep reliving, it's the things you have no closure to that you will relive. How can you tell if you have closure to something? It's because when it closes out, you can remember it, but you don't relive it. So think about that, and I'll be excited to chat with you again on the next segment.